Blueprint of Horror: How Auschwitz Was Engineered for Mass Killing. At the height of World War II, in a quiet corner of southern Poland, a place that once looked ordinary became the center of one of humanity's darkest chapters. Auschwitz did not begin as a death camp, nor was it built overnight. It evolved, slowly, deliberately, and systematically, into a vast network designed for exploitation, torture, and mass extermination on an industrial scale. More than 1.1 million people were killed here, yet the numbers only tell a fraction of the story. Today, we look beyond the statistics and confront the disturbing reality of how Auschwitz emerged, expanded, and operated. How did a simple prison transform into the largest symbol of human cruelty? What happened inside its barracks, gas chambers, and medical blocks? And how did this terrifying system finally collapse? This documentary takes you through the origins, machinery, daily life, and final days of Auschwitz, so the world never forgets what happened behind its barbed wire. The early years of the camp were marked by expansion and relentless brutality. Prisoners were forced to build the camp themselves: new fences, new blocks, new watchtowers. By 1941, after Germany launched Operation Barbarossa against the Soviet Union, thousands of captured Soviet soldiers needed to be housed. Auschwitz quickly became a holding place for these prisoners of war. Yet even as its population grew, the camp was already shifting towards something far more sinister. By late 1941 and early 1942, the final solution had taken shape. This was the Nazis' coordinated plan to eradicate the Jewish population of Europe. The decision was formalized during the Wannsee Conference, but preparations had begun earlier. Auschwitz was chosen to play a central role in this genocidal project. In October 1941, construction began on Auschwitz II Birkenau, located roughly 2 miles away from the original camp. This new facility was engineered not for imprisonment, but for extermination. Birkenau contained large underground gas chambers and crematoriums capable of burning bodies around the clock. To test the killing method, the Nazis conducted a trial gassing in August 1941, killing 600 Soviet POWs and 250 sick Polish prisoners using Zyklon B, a pesticide originally meant for killing lice. The test succeeded in Nazi terms, and Zyklon B became the standard tool of mass murder. By 1943, Auschwitz had grown into a massive complex of more than 40 subcamps spread across the region. Although commandants changed, hosts temporarily replaced by Arthur Liebehenschel, the killing process continued with increasing precision. When Höss returned in 1944 to oversee the deportation of Hungarian Jews, the camp witnessed some of the most intense extermination operations of the entire Holocaust. The arrival process was designed to strip victims of hope and identity. People, often crammed into cattle cars for days, were unloaded onto a platform known simply as the ramp. SS officers conducted selections in seconds. Those deemed unfit to work, babies, children, the elderly, pregnant women, or anyone appearing weak, were sent to the left. That left meant death. Those sent to the right were temporarily spared for forced labor, though many of them would eventually die from starvation, exhaustion, or disease. The gas chambers were disguised as bathhouses. Victims were told to undress and remember where they placed their belongings. Fake shower heads hung from the ceilings. Once inside the sealed chamber, Zyklon B pellets were dropped through openings. Within minutes, the rooms filled with toxic gas. Panic erupted. People clawed at the walls and doors, climbing over one another in desperate attempts to breathe. Death usually came after 15 to 20 minutes of agony. Afterward, members of the Sonderkommando, groups of prisoners, mostly Jewish men, were forced to remove the bodies, shave the heads, extract gold teeth, and transport the corpses to the crematoriums. These men were intended to leave no trace. Every few months, they themselves were executed and replaced with new prisoners. Still, some managed to secretly document what they witnessed, burying notes near the crematoriums. Those notes, discovered after the war, became crucial evidence of the crimes committed inside Auschwitz. Life for prisoners who were not immediately killed was defined by starvation, disease, and relentless punishment. The barracks at Birkenau were originally horse stables, built to house about 50 animals. The Nazis stuffed more than 700 people into each one. There was no insulation, no proper sanitation, and no privacy. Prisoners slept on wooden planks and shared tiny spaces with multiple others. In winter, many froze. In summer, the heat was suffocating. Toilets were crude concrete blocks or open pits used by hundreds of people, cleaned rarely, if at all. Food consisted of bitter coffee or tea in the morning, watery soup at midday, and a small piece of stale bread in the evening. The total calories were far below what a person needed to survive, especially when forced to perform 12 to 14 hours of hard labor every day. Many prisoners suffered from typhus, tuberculosis, dysentery, and other diseases. Without medicine, most died within weeks or months. Violence from SS guards and capos, prisoners given positions of power, was constant and often arbitrary. Even the smallest perceived mistake could result in a beating, torture, or execution. One of the most horrifying aspects of Auschwitz was the so-called medical experimentation. Joseph Mengele, the camp's most notorious doctor, focused particularly on twins. He measured their bodies, injected chemicals into their eyes to attempt to change their color, and conducted surgeries without anesthesia. He sometimes killed twins with injections to the heart to perform comparative autopsies. Out of roughly 1,500 sets of twins experimented on, only about 200 individuals survived. Other Nazi doctors carried out sterilization experiments, exposed prisoners to harmful radiation, infected them with deadly diseases to test unproven drugs, or conducted operations purely to observe suffering. Women endured severe abuse, sterilization, forced nudity during inspections, and the killing of newborn babies immediately after birth. The cruelty was systemic and absolute. In late 1944 and early 1945, as the Soviet army approached, the Nazis tried to erase evidence of their crimes. Documents were burned, crematoriums destroyed, and many prisoners with first-hand knowledge were executed. On January 17, 1945, the SS evacuated around 56,000 prisoners on deadly marches toward camps deeper inside Germany. Thousands died along the roads, succumbing to cold, exhaustion, or execution. When Soviet troops entered Auschwitz on January 27, 1945, they found only about 7,000 emaciated survivors. Piles of bodies lay across the grounds. Warehouses were filled with human hair, shoes, eyeglasses, and children's clothing, the belongings of victims who never returned. Despite the Nazis' attempts to hide their crimes, the evidence of mass murder remained unmistakable. After the war, many perpetrators were convicted, while others escaped judgment. Survivors rebuilt their lives, but the memories of Auschwitz never faded. Today, the remains of the camp stand as a memorial, a place preserved not to reopen old wounds, but to ensure the world never forgets the consequences of unchecked power and dehumanization. Auschwitz endures as a reminder of humanity's capacity for cruelty, but also of the responsibility each generation has to prevent such darkness from rising again.